Ready to go.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us for the Let Me Introduce You podcast. I am Jen. This is Adarian. And we are kicking this section of the podcast off with a special series. We're hosting a biomechanics movement summit, the first one in Las Vegas in January 12th through 13th. So we're introducing you all to all the different speakers and their areas of expertise. We are starting with Adarian Barr. So, who is, he gets to go first. Who is Adarian Barr? Adarian has been involved in track and field as an athlete and coach for the last 30 plus years. That's accurate, right? Or is it 40?
Don't make me that old, but yeah, it'd be about, it's going to be, 40, 45. Yeah.
45 years? Okay.
Yeah.
He's a self-proclaimed movement genius. That's what his Amazon author bio says, and is the co-author of the book.
Wait. Did it say self-proclaimed or just movement genius?
It said movement genius.
Yeah, okay. I just want to make sure that's right. Okay.
And he's co-author of the book, Let Me Introduce You, Tales of Lovers, Threesomes, and Movement with Me. Adarian has extensively studied the function of the foot during dynamic movement. And you've been doing that for a really long time, haven't you?
Long time, 15, 20 years now.
And what prompted you to become really interested in the foot?
Well, the biggest thing was just not understanding it and not understanding what people were saying about it as far as movement was concerned. A lot of things just didn't make sense, and then I think, dealing with shoes as I've been modifying shoes since, 06, so about 15, 20 years been modifying because so the more I got into shoes, the more I had to understand about the feet and reading patterns, things like that. So, yeah.
And one of the areas of the foot that you're particularly interested in is the windlass mechanism, correct?
Yes.
And the windlass mechanism is a term that describes the manner by which the plantar fascia supports the foot during weight-bearing activities and provides information regarding biomechanical stresses placed on the foot. You would agree with that definition?
No, but okay.
So I pulled that definition from a paper called Plantar Fasciitis and the Windlass Mechanism, a biomechanical link to clinical practice. So what would you say about the windlass mechanism?
I read it. Yeah, I read it. I read
it. So how is that definition inaccurate?
Well, like I said, the whole thing about, one of the things about the foot that I think is mistaken is how it's things they say things support the foot. Mm-hmm. When the foot doesn't need support. The foot is this thing, you stand on it and it doesn't need support. You have some arches in it that support the body weight that's on top of the foot, but as far as itself, it doesn't need support. So I think that's one of the things there, with this whole process that I think is like, plus, like I said, when you have a lot of soft tissue, like anything else, if you soft tissue, it doesn't hold up very well.
That makes sense.
Things just don't, if all of a sudden we start walking on our hands all the time, palms wouldn't hold up as well as they wouldn't.
Right.
There's very few. I mean, think about people that sit on their butt for too long. Got problems. All this soft tissue, all this muscle, you get problems,
Right.
So I think, when you look at the structure, it's just, I don't think it's designed to support anything.
Okay, this actually segues well into the original paper in which the windlass mechanism was described, which I sent to you last night. It's a 1954 paper. It is referenced all of the time. Again, everyone listening, 1954.
Right.
A long time ago. And it was based on what was being looked at with cadavers. Right?
Right.
So Hicks originally described the windlass mechanism in this paper. And what he said about it was the effect was as though a cable had been wound 1/4 of a turn onto the drum of a windlass.
Right.
The drum of the windlass being the head of the metatarsal, the handle, which does the winding, being the proximal phalanx, and the cable, which is wound onto the drum, being the plantar pad and the plantar aponeurosis.
Yeah.
So decipher that for us and explain whether or not that's accurate.
Well, okay, let's go back. So this paper was written when?
1954.
Okay, but the term windlass goes all the way back to like 1590.
That is correct. It comes from the Norse word vindas, which literally means winding pole.
Yeah. So it's a term that's been borrowed, and like I said, a lot of times words get borrowed from science or some other place and brought over to here as a reference or a primary, like this is what it seems to appear. And so these things say what a windlass is, it's designed to move heavy objects. That's what it's designed for, you know? And that's why we, you know, if you rest them in sails are heavy, trying to move those, or anchor, things like that, you know? And so you have this thing and you have to think like, what's heavy that I would need a windlass mechanism for?
Wouldn't it be the body?
What's heavy in the human body that I would need a windlass mechanism for? Because you got to think about it more like a sail.
Mm.
You know, like the sail is blowing away and you're trying to pull it back, you know. So something that's heavy in a sense, and you have to, you know, imagine heavy. And the thing that when you look at the structure, you have this piece running here, and then you have it run to the calcaneus. Mm-hmm. And then on the other side of the calcaneus is what? An Achilles. Mm-hmm. So when the knee moves, it pulls on the Achilles. So it technically would move the calcaneus. Mm-hmm. Well, if it moved the calcaneus, then your arches would collapse. Mm-hmm. So this windlass mechanism counts as the Achilles. That's the heavy portion. It counts as the Achilles.
Which is what causes the heel to lift.
Right.
And so within the windlass mechanism, how does that work with the toes? Because often I feel like the toes get discussed with the windlass mechanism, but I don't feel like that aspect is very well understood.
Well, you gotta look at when is the windlass mechanism going to, and we're just talking about, we're not gonna talk about the other windlass mechanisms of the foot right now. We're just gonna talk about this one right here. Yeah. And so you have to look at it like, okay, when is it going to kick in? One of the ways it kicks in is right before your foot may hit the ground. A lot of times, especially in running, you see the big toes flexed up already. Well, it's already kicked in, you know? So, and what does that do? Once again, you got to think about the structure and what is this doing? Well, if you land heel first and that toe's not up, guess what the heel's going to do? Move backwards. So it's
which is going to put pressure on the arch of the foot, right?
It will collapse at that point because you're gonna have it moving backwards. You got the tibia moving forward. All of a sudden, the arch will collapse. Mm-hmm. So you don't get that. Now you also got to look at the whole structure of, you know, I need this attachment point here because of this attachment point here with the gastroc and Achilles and things like that. As the tibia rotates forward, you know, depends on what structure the foot's in. Because we've seen, like I said, that's when we talk about class 1, class 2 levers. If you see the class 1 lever, guess what? The tibia shifts angle, but the heel stays on the ground.
Oh, so you're keeping the foot, it's going to be very slow. That whole transition is going to be very slow when that's the case.
I don't need a windlass mechanism at that point in time. Why? Because the calcaneus is not being moved.
Right.
But now I go to a class 2 mode. All of a sudden, I need this fascia to hold this calcaneus in place so that the tibia can shift forward, and guess what it does? It moves the whole foot with it. So it's like, so people got to think about the foot as this conveyor belt or this track, like on a tank that is always trying to move in front of the body. So this is how we keep the foot moving in front of the body. Is we need these two mechanisms to work, you know? So like I said, I don't think it's a support issue. It's a movement issue. How do I keep this foot moving? How do I keep this arch from falling apart so I can keep the foot moving?
And to be clear, and I know not everybody's gonna be able to see this, so like the windlass mechanism is referring to this, right? And this, like this aspect of the foot, the center of the heel, and then the MTP joints, which I think is important because again, it's not the toes, it's the MTP joints.
Right. So now, put your foot back up. I know they can't see it, and go ahead and flex your big toe. See, they just kicked in.
And you can see it. So when and this is different, and you don't need it when you're like just standing. So a lot of times people will do this big toe lift exercise.
You don't need it. You don't need it.
And that's not going to train the windlass to function the way you want it to when you're running.
Right. Well, if you want to I don't know how flexible you are, but if you put your foot up again, and this becomes fun. Now take your heel. Oh, well, let's see if you can do this. Go ahead and bend your leg so you can take your heel and move your heel backwards. Can you move
Backwards like that?
Put your hand on it and move it.
Like,
okay. Yeah. See, see what happens now. Just hold it there and go ahead and flex your foot. And go ahead and flex your foot like you was doing before. Just flex your foot. No, you was flexing your whole foot.
Like that?
No, dorsiflex the whole foot.
Dorsiflex like that.
Yeah,
oh,
like that. Like that.
Okay.
Like that. So now you see how it pulls on the big toe itself.
Yes.
Now watch this. Go ahead and relax. Now go ahead and pull on the heel. And now flex your big toe.
Ooh, it doesn't go anywhere.
Doesn't go and say. It doesn't take much. It doesn't take much. So once that, so you got this two-way thing going. Once that heel moves, that's half the battle right there.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really to keep the heel in place.
Mm-hmm. And what's different about this, again, I think this gets extrapolated, is it's not keeping the heel in place on the ground. It's not that the heel is staying planted on the ground when this happens.
Is while you're moving about. Yeah. So we go one more thing. Let's go one more thing. This time, take your heel and push it forward.
Wait, forward that way?
Now take your hand and just push the back of your heel forward. Like try to push it down and forward. Okay,
down
just like that. Yeah, you're just like that. You're fine. You're fine. Now go ahead and flex your toe.
Okay.
See, the effect is minimum now.
Yeah, very minimum. And it feels very different in my foot.
Yeah. So once again, why? Because the endpoints are too close now.
Oh, so
and
there's
so you have to really take up that slack now.
Mm-hmm.
So once again, people have to keep that in mind, that really it's all about keeping that heel in place.
Right. So what's happening then when people start using drills, like lifting the toes off the floor when you're standing, or like keeping the heel really locked on the ground while you try and lift the toes?
Well, think about this here, and that's why I said don't think about a support issue, because the arches are going to be there,
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, if you stretch this thing too far, you're going to have a delayed response as you run.
Mm-hmm.
As you try to run, jump, you're just going to get into delayed response because you want it to be fast,
Right.
Think about, we increase the range, because like I said, as your foot's coming down, you have this range. You just increase this range.
Mm-hmm.
So now, if you don't go through that whole range, that means when your heel hits, it might move a little bit more than what it should.
Got it. Which again, like you said, is going to make everything slower. So this windlass is really designed to keep kind of like, it's almost like a little bit of tension in the foot as it transitions.
Yeah, as it transitions. So, and then that way you could, and then at that point in time, because like I said, the biggest thing is the knee has moved, and attached to the back of the knee is the gastroc, or attached to the back of the femur is the gastroc. So as the femur moves forward, it's already pulling on the heel. We don't want the heel to pull away from the metatarsal head,
Mm-hmm.
from the whole place. And now think about this here too. This is where things go funny at. Think about somebody that is doing toe raises and they Achilles bunches up.
Mm-hmm.
So at that point in time, you created space for this thing to move that you want to move to.
Makes sense.
And that's where people, they, like I said, it pinches up, or, why, if somebody stands on a big toe, they'll start to feel something in the Achilles.
Right.
Because now the Achilles taking on weight that is not supposed to be taken on.
Right. Which actually, and that's a good point. And I feel like a lot of people think the big toe is the area that is involved in toe off when you run.
Right. And toe off's a cool word because that's what it means. But most of the time, the second toe is the last toe to leave the ground, not the big toe.
Right.
Most of the time, the second toe is gonna be the last toe to leave the ground, not the big toe.
And doesn't the bulk of the pushing of the ground behind you as your foot's leaving the ground, isn't that coming from the MTP joints?
Well, it's not. Well, the thing about it is like this. I always try to tell people, equate this to if you're at the dock.
Mm-hmm.
You ever see somebody at the dock and they try to get into a boat?
Yes.
And the boat starts to move away from them?
Yes.
Yeah, if you try to push, what's going to happen? You're going to fall into the water much faster than what you.
Right.
So it's kind of the same thing. It's hard to push off an object that you're moving away from, and you're moving away from the ground. The foot's moving away from the ground. So it's hard to push off that object. And all you want at this point in time is if think about it this way here, as that boat starts to slide away from you, At that point in time, your best bet is to take your foot off the dock.
Hmm.
That's your best bet at that point in time. Take your foot at the dock and try and get in that way. Pick up both feet and try to get in the boat that way. So same thing. At that point in time, your best bet is to remove the foot off the ground. Not try to push the ground away from it, but remove the foot off the ground. And that's why, like I said, toe off is a good word. Pushing off the toe, that's not a good word.
So what's the difference between the what's the role of the MTP joints versus the role of the toes?
Well, also too, if you try to think about this here, if you're trying to push off the big toe, and you got this windlass mechanism going, once again, the big toe has no end range to it in a sense. It could flex a whole 180.
Right.
It could flex a whole 180 if you put enough weight on it. At that point in time, somebody's got to give.
Yeah.
So that becomes a thing there. So MTP joints in this process, especially when you talk about, if we talk about the windlass mechanism, one of the things we have to talk about really is the sesamo bones, which is running this band runs through those things, which, sesamo bones, once again, what they're designed to do, move things. You've seen people back in the day take a small pebble, move a 20-ton rock.
Right.
Because you can manipulate things at that point in time, So you have this area of your foot that's designed to manipulate, help you move better. Basically, is to help you move. It's not designed to support you. Like I said, you're not trying to support weight on the sesamo bones either. You're not trying to, you're trying to support weight on the transverse arch. That's a different story. And, people talk about the tripod of the foot. And so this way the windlass mechanism comes in that too, where people talk about the tripod of the foot because people used to but guess what? With the windlass mechanism, you can have 2 points or 1 point, and it holds everybody together at that point in time.
Okay.
So that allows you to go from 3 points to 2 points to 1 point.
Oh, got it. As the ankle's rolling and the foot's transitioning.
As the foot's transitioning, yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. So one of the things with the windlass mechanism, though, is, as you said, a lot of people you'll see their big toe extends right before the foot hits the ground.
Right.
Right. So if you wanted to train the function of because you're not training the tissues, you're not getting stronger in your feet when you train this stuff. You're just training timing, sequencing, and coordination, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, but that's really nothing to train. That's something that's going to happen.
But if you consciously think about pulling your toes up when you're doing certain exercises, you feel your foot almost get a little more rigid, right?
Right. If that's what you're looking for,
Okay.
And it's not that it gets, more rigid because the bones are rigid already.
Right.
What's going to happen at that point in time is you feel just the tightness that things feel kind of compact now, But at the same time, what is that going to do for you? Well, it's going to help you roll faster. You may not want to roll faster. It's going to modify the collision. You may not want that.
And when wouldn't you want that?
Remember the video watch of the parkour person?
I do, yeah.
They hit the thing and fell off. Well, you don't want it at that point in time.
That's fair. Okay.
So change of direction type stuff. But yeah, but a lot of times too, once again, when people talk about, strengthening this mechanism, there's no way to strengthen this mechanism. All you're doing is stretching this mechanism out. There's but what people forget too is the other part people forget that's underneath this thing is muscles.
Right. Lots of muscles, 4 layers of muscles, in fact.
Lots of layers of muscles running running the same pattern,
right.
And so, they're not looking into that structure either. They're just looking into this one thing. But other than that, you have this tissue underneath there too. And that's why most of the time, even in that paper, you read that paper, they say that the big toe is the main operator of this windlass mechanism. The other toes can be involved, but they don't have the same pull as these other ones. And people are not thinking about it like, why is that? Why is this? But also, where does it run? It runs underneath the arch. It runs underneath a place where there's not a whole lot of stuff at, and there's not a whole lot of stuff to be on top of it. There's not a whole lot of stuff there. So this band can move smoothly.
Oh, interesting. Okay. So, and this is a little bit off topic, but if we look at something like plantar fasciitis, is the windlass mechanism not working well in that type of situation?
Well, it's hard to say because, I've seen people with plantar fasciitis and the muscle swollen.
Oh, okay.
And so you have swollen muscles underneath there,
Mhm.
and what causes the muscle to swell, a lot of times I've
Right.
seen people with plantar fasciitis, they have things are swollen. So something got damaged,
Uh-huh.
you know. The other part too is, you can also have tight tissue.
Hmm.
And as this thing's being pulled on, it may not, for whatever reason it's tight and it doesn't like, being pulled on, and so I would look at not the big toe, but I would look at the other four toes.
In what context?
Well, because if I'm going to lose flexibility, where am I going to lose flexibility at? So you got a flexibility problem in the foot.
Right.
You got to remember the big toe has how many joints versus the other toes have how many joints.
3 versus 2.
So most likely you've lost flexibility someplace, probably at another MTP joint that's causing you problems.
Oh, which is very different than I think how it's I believe how it's traditionally assessed.
Yeah. But like anything that's like same thing. I mean, say you sprain your wrist,
Hmm.
and the wrist heals, but your finger hurts.
Right.
So what got injured first? The finger.
Yep.
It's just but we've been focused on the wrist
Yes.
because it's screaming the loudest. But really, what the finger's like, hey, I was first in this battle.
Yes.
So a lot of times too, where the pain's at may not be where the cause is at.
Right.
It's just the person that's screaming the loudest at this point in time that we got to pay attention to it.
Yeah.
So you get into that there, but even like, with some of these things, like even like, when people get into, shin reactions or whatever other reactions, Achilles
Oh, right.
reactions,
Yeah.
sometimes, like I said, Achilles reaction, a lot of times it's just you on the big toe and the Achilles can't support the weight. You're
Mhm.
looking at shin reactions, people get shin splints, things like that. Is that you unwanted vibrations are just happening at that
Right.
point in time. And it won't take long to get a shin reaction, you
Yeah.
know, but you're looking at the shin, but you got to look at the reaction that caused the unwanted vibration. And so,
Mhm.
so same thing. When you look at plantar fasciitis, a lot of things underneath there that need to be looked at besides the tissue that is acting up at that point in time.
That makes
And
sense.
think about this: a lot of times when people got plantar fasciitis, where they complain about the pain and this is what's funny, where they complain about pain at the most, the attachment point at the calcaneus.
Yes.
That's where they complain about the most at, and that could be, a whole lot of things, from ground contact to, the shoe, or the ankle not moving like it should move. A lot of
Mhm.
different things can cause that. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, that makes sense. So, one other segue with this. So, when you look at like a sprinter versus a distance runner, are they going to use their windlass mechanism in the same way?
Yeah. The biggest thing that changed from windlass mechanism is difference between up leg and down leg.
Okay. And
Where
how does that work?
yeah, well, because like on the up leg, it's more of a class 2 lever.
Hmm.
Little time is class 1.
Right.
So you need a windlass mechanism right away.
Hmm.
On the down leg, class 1, I don't need it right away. I need it later in the.
So you could play with timing with that,
Yeah,
actually.
yeah. So
That's interesting.
yeah, so if you're on your up leg, you might want to mess with it. On down leg, leave it alone.
Hmm. Hmm.
Because yeah, where you're gonna, and because people gotta understand how foot, on a class 2, you're gonna land, transverse, roll backwards to go forward.
Right.
On the down leg, you're gonna land more flat
Right.
to go forward. So once again, I need it right away on a class 2. I don't need it right away on the class 1.
And what's interesting about that is you just sent me video of Kipton running the last portion of his marathon,
Yeah,
right? And
right.
his turnover was so fast, it was actually hard to see which was his up leg and which was his down leg.
Yeah. You got to watch it a minute, but yeah, but once you spot it, you go okay. But as you watch it, and everything, and you see the speed that his feet come off the ground at, it's very fast.
Mm-hmm.
So his wheels are really really rolling and everything. So he may have really a short mechanism on that class 1 for the down leg to get him to
Got
that
it.
class 2 a bit faster, and versus say I'm a volleyball player, we've
Mm-hmm.
seen it where they have a longer duration of a class 1 lever.
Right.
before they get
Which
to
is
class.
beneficial for what they need to do.
Benefit to what they're doing, yeah.
Right. Interesting.
And
So
that's the whole thing about it. It fits the environment that it needs to fit.
right. Interesting. So given all of this, how does this relate to what you're going to be talking about in Vegas?
Well, the biggest thing in Vegas is just like that. We're going to try to explain it and get people to understand it more, and then put them in situations to see the many ways that it can work. And also, we're going to go into more windlass mechanisms as a part of the foot. We only talk about that one, but there's other ones that are part of the foot also. You know, we may even talk about other windlass mechanisms that are other parts of the body. You know, because there's some parts of the bodies that have windlass mechanisms involved, some muscles that are actually windlass mechanism. So we get into just not just at the foot, but throughout the rest of the foot, throughout the rest of the body, how these windlass mechanisms work, just like we talked about earlier. You know, what's that? The iliac, what's the name of that muscle?
Oh yeah, the iliacus. Yeah.
Yeah, iliacus, that's a windlass mechanism.
Right.
Psoas, windlass mechanism.
Right.
So,
which again is very different than how people think about it.
Right. So when people talk about, say I got stiffness here, you can't have it there, because that muscle at that point in time, without that windlass mechanism portion, is short. It's
right.
not. It's and not short, but it's long because it got slack in it. So so it's not that it's tight. It actually has slack in that position if you understand the windlass mechanism at that point in time.
Okay. Oh, so this will be fun to all of y'all listening. If anyone is interested and needs CEUs, you should join us in Vegas. We will also be live streaming it, and you get NSCA and NASM CEUs. Right?
Right. You just don't get them if you buy the recording later.
Yeah, but you'll still get the good information, so you know.
Yeah. So that becomes the thing. So yeah, so it's not going to be just about the foot, but it's going to be about the foot and other windlass mechanisms throughout the body.
Okay, there you go. So you got a little tease of the windlass mechanism, specifically the one windlass mechanism that we all think about, the one that's in the foot, the plantar fascia.
Yeah. Right. So yeah, and then like I said, we'll talk about the other ones and everything. The people watching, well, you just told us everything. No, I didn't.
Oh, I know. That's why I was like, we need to make sure.
No, it's a lot more to go. That speech right there would be a 2-minute speech. This is how it works. But no, we're gonna go into other parts and other mechanisms of the body of the foot,
which will be fun.
Yeah.
And there's 4 other speakers that are going to be talking.
Yes.
So again, if you want more information, I will make sure that there's actually a website link. I know I'm not always great about that, but there will actually be a website link in the notes on this. And we're talking to one of the other speakers next time. And we have a couple of other things coming up too, don't we?
Yeah, we also have, once again, we have Portland. We have Portland on December 1st. And then we have the book club. One's ending, one's going to start. Yes. And then once again, we have, the Biomechanics Movement Summit in Las Vegas. And then we have the Amsterdam retreat coming up too.
Yes. There you go. Everybody, you got all the information. If you have any questions or feedback, feel free to reach out. And I think that's it till next time.
Till next time.
All right.